The Enterprise's terraforming mission to Doraf 1 has been cancelled. Vulcans have some strange concoction they call mint, but Amanda doesn't recognize it. And Klim Dokachin once found a 14-foot Kaldorian eel on board a freighter in someone's locker. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Sarek Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 5, Episode 7, Unification 1, story by Rick Berman and Michael Piller, teleplay by the legendary Jerry Taylor, directed by Sarek's pal Les Landau. This was November 2nd, 1991. We have a very, very special guest today, everybody. We're super excited. Leonard Nimoy's son himself, Adam Nimoy. How are you today, Adam?
All good in the hood. Thank you for having me.
And he's got the Vulcan salute ready.
Yeah.
I love it. Man,
well,
this
first
is so
of all,
cool.
First of all, I want to say, I told you before, and I want to repeat this because, Adam, your father to me has always been the gold standard of what Star Trek is about. I think the performances he gave as Spock are hands down, unbeatable, and set the precedent of what science fiction storytelling is about, which is, curiosity, exploring, challenging the mind to think critically about subject matter. And I think he pushed the envelope in that regards through his portrayal of Spock, as well as any other character. I've been the biggest fan of your father since the beginning. And aside from my own personal bias to Captain Sisko, Spock is my favorite character. And
wow.
Yeah, and I've always felt that way. I just think his performance is riveting. I think he understands drama to a high level. Just without saying things, he's able to express things through his facial expressions. He communicates very well the emotional undertone of the scene. And the camera loves him. The camera loves him. So, when you add all of those qualities, not to mention, I'm sure, the intellect that he brings, the world experience. You can see by his performance that he's an educated, learned, well-traveled, person who has read a lot and understands the human condition, I think, to an excellent degree. And that's what resonates through the film on me. That's why I've always had a special love for your father. And seeing him in this episode was, such a treasure, such a pleasure. Lending his credibility to this show as well, I felt was another thing that he was doing in honor of the tradition of the Star Trek family, which has also carried on to this day. All of us have our own kind of branch in the family tree of Star Trek. And I think his appearance in this episode was a honoring of that tradition of passing the torch, of recognizing the family. And having said all of that, Adam, I just want to say, yes, I love your father. He's excellent and exceptional. And I actually love for you to kind of piggyback on some of that and give us background about, who he was and what he brought to the table.
Well, Sarek, thank you. That's so kind of you and generous. I really appreciate all that. My dad gave a lot of himself to the franchise, and I think he was really proud of the fact that he was in the original pilot, the only cast member other than Majel Barrett, who was in the original pilot episode. Everybody else was changed out by the time they got to the second pilot. And then continued on through the franchise, and then made it into The Next Generation, and then made it into the movies, and then made it into, which happened actually before The Next Generation was 91. The movie started in 1980. And he was very proud of the fact that he showed up in the J.J. Abrams reincarnation of Star Trek, kind of bookended his whole life. And he just gave a lot of himself to the whole project. I think he really loved the work. As you say, it's about the human condition. That's what my dad was all about, is what can you say about the human condition and being, half human, half alien. As Kirk says in the eulogy at the end of Wrath of Khan, he was one of the most human people he had ever come across. because my dad had a lot of sense of humanity and also the dedication to the people making Star Trek. One of the stories that's legion is the fact that when they came up with the animated series in the 70s, my dad wouldn't do it unless George Takei was in it and Nichelle Nichols was in it. They were going to use other people's voices for them, but he didn't feel that was right because it's about an integrated universe, IDIC, infinite diversity and infinite combinations, and he wasn't going to participate if they weren't going to participate. So my dad was very much the heart and soul of what Star Trek's all about.
Mm-hmm.
I see that on full display every time he's on camera. And you mentioned the J.J. Abrams. I really like the J.J. Abrams. I know there's discussion about that, but his performance in that was spectacular. I happen to have seen that. And, seeing him essentially age in front of people is one of the distinctions that I have, having grown up in front of people on my show. And now when they see me, they say, "Oh my God, you've aged," and so you age in front of people on this show, and the grace with which he did it, the poise, the integrity that he kept all the way till the end. He held it with dignity, and he represented it with, right till the very end with the same passion, with the same fervor, with the same intensity and energy that he always did.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarek. Yeah, we've seen a lot of people age through the years in Star Trek. It's a long franchise, and I remember the pilot of Deep Space Nine when you were a boy, and you were fabulous, by the way.
Awesome.
I mean, I was following David Carson around, the guy who directed the pilot. I was a big fan of David's, and was watching everything he was doing, looking at the dailies, and your stuff was just terrific from beginning to end. Watching you grow on the show was quite spectacular. I think you did a great job, and thank you for all that as well.
Oh, well, thank you. I had the pleasure of being one link in the chain, and I was surrounded by tremendous people, as you attest to, with the people that were involved with creating the show, and Leonard's commitment to those people. I felt like it's an ensemble. We have people behind the camera, we have the writers, we have all of the people working together as a unit, much like the crew of a ship.
Exactly.
And, so no one person really can take all the credit for anything. It's a collaborative issue, but certainly some people shine more than others, and that's where I feel like your father did an exceptional job of shining when his opportunity came, and there's no really debating that, based on the success that he had. Did he mention anything about this particular episode, this time of doing Next Generation?
Well, not only did he mention something, actually, let me prompt you here, because Adam sent this in, which is so cool. And this was, I guess, shot maybe just a year or a year and a half before you were filming The Emissary, the first episode of Deep Space Nine. So this is actually very close in time to what you guys were talking about when Adam was saying he was following David Carson around. But check this out.
Yeah.
Who are these fine fellows on the set of Star Trek?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Wow. Amazing. Obviously in the cave set. What can you tell us about this, Adam?
Well, I mean, on this season of The Next Generation, I was sitting around observing. I wanted to start directing, and I was watching Nick Meyer make Star Trek VI, the last of the feature films with the original cast, and when that was over, I was trying to figure out what else I should do, and my dad said, "Go talk to Rick Berman about observing on The Next Generation. You should talk to him right away and try to get a gig on that show." And so Rick's kind of condition was, he was nice enough to invite me in, but I had to observe everybody for an entire season, including Les Landau and Cliff Bole. They did part 1 and part 2 of Unification. So I was on the set when they were shooting almost that entire episode and talking with my dad. I mean, we would talk between take. That picture is kind of unusual because usually my dad did not want to have a conversation while he was on set and in character. It was just, he just didn't like going in and out. He wanted to stay in the zone, the Spock zone. And that was something I had experienced as a very young kid. I mean, I was on the set of the original series when I was 10, and my dad was like, "Don't talk to me, don't bother me," because he wanted to stay in character. So it was very generous of him to spend the time between takes talking about what the show is about and what I was learning on the set. I love following both Les Landau and Cliff Bole, fabulous very different directors, and David Carson, as I said, all with their own sense of style and technique and just system of breaking down scripts and directing. But it was a really great education to be there and watching them, and it was a privilege to be there. I mean, everybody was there was a lot of energy on the set because my dad was on the episode, and I think it really, everybody stepped up. Everybody in the cast, particularly Patrick and Brent, who had a lot of scenes with my dad, really stepped up their game. And the other great thing about that episode is this is really episode 8, the second part of the two-parter. Is Malachi Throne is in the episode. Now, Malachi Throne is in one of my favorite original series episodes, which is the Menagerie, where Spock is court-martialed, and they incorporated the Cage, the original pilot episode, into that two-parter. So very, just a great experience. I'm so privileged to be there and watch. And as you said, Sarek, I mean, the crew is just amazing on The Next Generation. I mean, it really is. It's a tough gig. It's a collaborative art form, and I really got the sense of that watching how The Next Generation was made.
Wow. When the directors were, you had Les Landau, you had Cliff Bole. I mean, obviously, he knows already what his character is. I mean, how much direction can you give him on, at this point on Next Generation? But, I felt that it was amazing to see him with Picard. Just to the sense of seeing them together on camera was, oh, this is a big moment here. I felt like this is a torch passing type moment. And it was big for me to see him there. Was he excited about this opportunity to revisit the character on this particular episode?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was a privilege for him. I think he really was. He loved to put on the ears when there was a good piece of storytelling for which to do it. I mean, there was some issues later on with Generations because he's not in Generations, the first transition film between the original cast and the TNG cast, because he felt there wasn't enough for him to be doing. But this episode was so well conceived, with Jerry Ryan and Michael Pillar and Rick Berman, story wise, and I think it's Michael Pillar's script. He really felt there was something to be said here. There was really some good storytelling, and he could, get into the character and develop the character more. And I just think, and the opportunity to work with Patrick, after that, Patrick started showing up to social functions at my dad's house with Rick Berman. So, I mean,
nice.
I think it was a very good experience. My dad was really happy to be, participating.
And Adam, you said that you started.
And you mentioned,
I'm sorry, I was just going to say you started doing the director in training thing that Rick Berman and company would do. Did you start with this two-parter, or had you started previously?
Well, by this time, I'm sorry, I got a crazy mutt here. Hey, come over here.
Is that? I noticed you muted yourself for a second. I guess that's why.
I did. I got rid of her for a minute. I by this time I had been taking classes. Hold on a second. Let me get her off the door. Come here.
Well, the reason I ask, if you can still hear us, the reason I ask is because I wanted to know if you kind of touched on it, but did you notice a different vibe around the set? You kind of mentioned that maybe you had, but what you're saying is you had been around the set previously to know that for this two-parter, for when your dad was there was certainly a different vibe, and there was certainly a difference in the energy on set.
Yeah, I mean, I've been with them all season. This is episode 7 and 8, so I had been with them up until this time, getting to know everybody who was making the show. And oh my God, hold the roll.
Yeah, no, I guess if it's funny because this reminds me of the David Livingston interview that we did when Livingston was talking about being put in the director and training program
Yeah.
and how he went through, I think he said therapy in order to deal with the emotional stress of it as well. But yeah, David Livingston also talked to us about this director and training program that Rick Berman had for that he went through.
Well, there were a lot of people directed, were given a shot at directing on the show, which
Right.
was
Yes.
to Rick's credit that he was generous enough to open that up to people. And
Yeah.
and Jonathan Frakes went on to have a pretty good career,
Oh,
after
yeah.
that. So yeah, I'd been on the set for some time and got to know the crew, and I got very tight with Marvin Rush, the DP, who moved over to Deep Space Nine, as you
Yeah.
know, and how things work. I mean, it was a really great education. That was kind of Rick's condition, but there was definitely a change in the energy on the set when they were going to be doing this two-parter with my dad. It was kind of a noticeable. Everybody was on their best game. I think it's an outstanding episode. It's really episode 8. I mean, Spock appears in 7, but then it's episode 8
Yeah.
where the story really begins. Everybody was. It was just a very exciting time. I'm glad I was there to witness it. I mean, I just learned a lot from watching them make the show. And the same thing happened in Star Trek 6. In between takes, my dad would sit with me and we'd talk about the production and what's going on and sort of the issues that they have to deal with and the timing. Again, very different technique and style. I mean, learning from David Carson's very specific about what he did, had a specific cut list, which is something that I really aspired to. He had everything cut in his mind before he even shot that show to make sure he had all the film he needed. Les Landau, very aggressive with the camera, very innovative with the work. Cliff Ball was just a really really good nuts and bolts director, very well prepared, a little more conservative than David Carson or Les, but very in control of the set, knew what he wanted, had a clear vision. I think he handled my dad very well. You can't really tell these guys. I mean, I found this. I knew this right away because I started directing in season 6. These guys know their character. You're not going to be telling them anything about that. What they don't know as well, and this is what my dad told me, is they don't know the story. They don't know the script as well as the director because we've been living with the script for 8 days in prep, breaking it down. So we know what's coming and what the nuance is and what the potential is, what the objectives are. We have a little more insight on that. We have more insight with guest actors. We have more input with, in terms of what their role is and what they're going to be doing. And style and technique, as I was talking about, we have some input on that. But I mean, you can't reinvent the show. That's not allowed. They're going to come down and, the producers are going to come down and hit you for that one, or you'll never come back. You got to shoot the show. But but there's ways to push the envelope and show your own kind of style and technique. And I talked to my dad a lot about that. And Les would say, and David Carson, the same thing. They were very big on transitions. How we go from one scene to another, and what can we do that's innovative and different? Is it a dissolve? Is it a camera move? Is it a push in? It's an actor's moving. I mean, they both those two guys in particular were very specific about from one scene to another. What does the transition look like? So a lot to learn, big learning curve while I was there.
Hey, Adam, we only have you for another minute or two here, so a couple super quick questions. The first one is just, of all the directors you watched on the set of Star Trek, which one would you say you modeled your directing the most off of? And then secondarily, please tell us about the book you've got out right now.
Sure, I'd love to. I got to let the dog back in.
So everybody, stay tuned for that. Keep up the intensity and the drama, though.
Speaking of transitions,
Okay, yeah, here we are, back again. I mean, a lot of it, I'd say, Les and David Carson, I followed the most because those are guys I just clicked with those guys and really wanted to, they really set the bar, I think, for me, just in my experience. I mean, there was a lot of great directors that went through, and And as I say, Jonathan Frakes and even David Livingston's work, it was excellent work. There's no doubt about it. Those guys I really clicked with, and they were very welcoming to me, and I really got into their process. David Carson, because he had very, very specific type of approach to prepping the script, breaking it down. And as I said, he had something that most directors don't have, which is a cut list. He had an idea before even going into the scene about how that scene would cut together. And for me, that was very important, because then specifically what film you absolutely have to have. It's not, a lot of directors, they do this garden hose variety of directing in which they shoot a master, they shoot some over the shoulders, they shoot some close-ups, and then let the editor figure it out. They just train all the film. But that's not the way David worked. And I really modeled myself after that, because I had a lot of editors who knew exactly what I was doing. And a lot of times I'd go in and give a couple notes and it would be done. Some editors couldn't quite follow the game plan. But when you have a cut list, then the editors really can see what you're doing and what your intention is, what your style is, and and how that scene really should cut together. And in terms of my book, I wrote this book, The Most Human.
Beautifully named.
Leonard Nimoy. We just published in June of last year. I've been all over the country promoting it. I was at the Star Trek convention in Vegas last year, and talking a lot of fans across the country. It's really the book is about my relationship with my dad. It's about Star Trek. It's about how 12-step recovery that my dad and I were both in enabled us to reconcile our relationship. We had a lot of trouble in the relationship with one another. I mean, my relationship with my dad was up and down. It was great moments like being on Star Trek with him and learning from him about the craft of directing. But then whenever we had a difference of opinion, very strident verbal assaults on one another when we didn't see eye to eye. And it wasn't until the last years of his life, around 2006, that he passed away almost exactly 10 years ago. It'll be the end of this month. So from 2006 to 2015, we were very close. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that we were both, dealing with recovery issues. So it's been a great experience. As I said, I've been all over the country talking about it, celebrating our relationship, and I was always proud of my dad from the very beginning. When I was on the set at age 9, really before the show, the original series even aired.
Mm-hmm. Well, Adam, we know you have to run, but we really appreciate you taking the time today. And the book, continued success with the book, and you've got Spock toys, you got Spock pop-ups. This is great stuff. I've got a lot of Spock figure. I've got that Spock figure. I'll tell you that much. I do. But anyway, Adam, sorry.
Thank
go ahead,
you.
Sarek.
No, I want to say thank you, Adam. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I wanted to just highlight a couple things that popped out that really rang true to me. You mentioned your father not taking the animation job unless they hired Takei and Michelle. I thought that's an example of something that reminded me of what Avery would do, how he approaches work. You also mentioned he felt like there was nothing for him to do in the crossover film, and so he didn't feel a need to be in it. Another way that I feel similar to how Avery would approach work, what is the meaning? Why am I here? What am I doing?
Is it just fan service, or is this something good?
Yeah. And I think that's that's the high level thinking that a great actor comes into performances with. Why am I here? What are we doing? What is the message? What's the story? So I'm kudos to that. Plus, also fighting on behalf of disenfranchised people. That's also an example of greatness. And then lastly, I want to say I'm glad that you had that window of opportunity to reconcile with your father during the closing years of his life, which ironically is what Sarek and Spock did not do in this first episode. And so that was fixed in real life between the two of you. And I think that's also something to commend. So thank you again, Adam. I really love talking with you, and I hope to see you again on the show.
Well, Sarek, I just want to say in closing, thank you for mentioning that, the complicated relationship between Spock and Sarek. I mean, that is one of the subplots of what's going on in Unification, and it's very interesting how it gets reconciled with the mind meld, between Spock and Picard. So Yeah, it's interesting how life imitates art sometimes.
It's a powerful parallel right there.
Yeah, that was the case for us.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, thank you again for the opportunity. Live long and prosper, as always. I hope to see you guys again.
Absolutely. Everybody, stick around. We've got more on this episode in just a minute. Adam Nimoy is amazing. Thank you so much. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Sarek Lofton, looking good in orange.
Hello.
This guy looks good in orange, in green, in yellow, in like army green, fluorescent green. I think green's your number one. You could hit every green and look good in that.
I love my green.
Mm-hmm.
The luck of the Irish, you know?
You are so Irish. Right? So obvious. You're from Cork, Ireland. Everybody knows. Here are the trivioids of the week. The Enterprise's terraforming mission to Dorov 1 has been canceled. Vulcans have some strange concoction they call mint, but Amanda doesn't recognize it. When the debates over the Cardassian War began, Spock attacked Sarek's position publicly. Vulcans have determined some fragments are dentarium. Klim Dokochin once found a 14-foot Kaldorian eel on board a freighter in someone's locker. Klim Dokochin wants to show Troy his eel. And the starship Triple E is missing.
Oh, yeah. I just throw that in there.
That's what she said to him, actually.
Okay. All right. I'm going to leave it alone.
Actually, but that was the...
Dankeschön. Isn't that thank you in German?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, Dankeschön.
And that was the actor, the guy that played the Dokochin guy, was the guy that Adam was mentioning. Malachi Throne, but another one I had totally missed. The Klingon captain is actually a well-known actor by the name of Stephen Root. Stephen Root.
That's Captain Kafada.
He was like Patchouli or
something.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Klingon captain. Now, the thing that this guy has so many credits, but the thing that everybody knows him as was Milton back in the 90s. He was Milton, the guy that was like, I just want to get my stapler over here. It was like an Office Space kind of thing. It was Office Space, actually. And, he's actually in 2 episodes as captain to, both Unifications. But more recently, he was incredible in the series Barry. Barry is a great one on HBO Max, I believe. But anyway, he's news radio too. I don't know. He's been in so many things. He's like, when you see him, you'll recognize it. I did not recognize him as the Klingon. I only just saw it in the credits. I was like, whoa, that was Stephen Root. Unbelievable. Anyway, Sarek, what do you think of this episode? Pretty crazy.
Oh yeah, this was a great episode. This had a cinematic feel to it. Felt like I'm watching a mini movie. Love some of the shots that Les Landau took on this particular episode. One was the aerial overview shot of Sarek in his deathbed. I thought that was a great shot.
Yeah.
And then when he rose up from it and did his speech where he walked around that room, I thought that was also filmed very well on Les Landau's part, also lit very well. So I thought Sarek's performance was phenomenal in this episode. I thought...
Amazing, right?
I thought, I was just like, whoa. When he starts off angry and he says, go from me. To his wife. By the way, that's a different wife than the last wife, right? That's the same woman that played Sarek's wife. It looked like a different actor.
It's possible. I did not even pay attention to that.
I'm pretty sure Sarek's wife was recast because I don't remember her. I'll remember that being the same actor from the first time I saw him, but I thought his performance was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
When he he gave that speech about Spock going up and playing in the mountains and not listening to him, and then he says, "But secretly, I admired him, the proud core that would not yield." And I was like, "Wow, that's a very deep and reflective thing for him to say at this age in his life. You know, to say, even though he disobeyed me, I kind of admired his fortitude for that." So I thought he gave one of the greatest performances of this episode. A+ for me.
Yeah. Also, I think I misspoke a second ago. I said that Malachi Throne played Dokachin. He played Pardek, Senator Pardek, who's a really cool Romulan senator. Yeah. The guy that played Clem Dokachin was Graham Jarvis. And I was actually shocked at how good of an actor that guy was for, kind of, I don't want to say a small role, but a role that I didn't expect too much from. I just thought it was going to be a gag and, jokes here and there. I noticed he did some amazing deliveries a few times. Like even when he said like, the T'Pau is gone, for just really, really great stuff. And I just kind of want to point him out. He was a Zach Dorn, and we had only seen the Zach Dorn once before, like in the second season. If you remember the game with the Zach Dorn where he was playing this game with Data, where they're like,
yeah.
That was the Zach Dorn, the strategist guy. So this was the second Zach Dorn we've seen. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about that for a bit. And yeah, I think you're right that the actress was not Amanda, it was Perrin.
Yes.
Perrin was the new actress, not Amanda, or the new character, the new wife. That's true. I didn't even pay attention to that. I'm ashamed to admit.
Yeah.
But what I thought was so crazy about this episode is kind of what I'm touching on here is in one episode, how much stuff was in there. There were 10 or 12 guest stars that all had good moments, significant moments, right? Even the soup woman, they call her the soup woman, Sarek, Admiral Brackett, Bajik, played by Eric Avari, who's a well-known actor too. Geron, I don't know who that is. That's probably one of the Romulans. Proconsul Neural, who I thought actually was a really well played character as well for how little that he got. They were just like jam-packed with great characters and actors. Senator Pardek, Clem Dokachin, the Klingon captain, Perrin, Spock, all that in one episode. I was just like,
yeah.
How did they do it? But
the regular crew, the Klingon captain was really great too. Yeah. I thought he gave a great performance as well, Kafada.
But the regular crew still had their moments. You would think that if 10 or 12 guest stars are, chewing up the scenery, that the rest of the people don't get much. But Troy had her moments. Riker had a lot of great moments. Geordi has his time. Data and Picard obviously do. Worf, like everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know how they did it, but really good.
I mean, they did it in a two-parter, and because it's a two-parter, they can roll out a story with more patience and kind of get into more growth of each kind of character. I felt that's the tempo that was laid out. There was it just was well written, and back to that was Rick Berman, Michael Piller, and Jerry Taylor. I just feel like the writing was good. Sarek dying, having that moment where he reflects on Spock was great. The whole intelligence gathering of the Federation, having seen Spock on Romulus, I think that kind of has Section 31 vibes. I wish I kind of saw some of that in Section 31, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
intel gathering, collecting, sharing of information type of stuff. That's fun to watch. And it's interesting to see how each one of those different aliens groups have their own intelligence, right? The Klingon came on and said, "Oh, are you here for the defector?" Because his intelligence explained, let them know that Spock was on Romulus. And then on Romulus itself, they had their own intelligence saying that Picard was on its way, right? So
Everybody knows this is the worst kept secret in the Alpha
Exactly.
Quadrant. Like everybody knows, dude.
Exactly. Everybody knows. So it's like no need for a Klingon bird of prey that has the ability to cloak.
No.
You don't need cloaking. We all know you're coming. You might as well just hold up a sign. This episode had a lot of things. There was another moment there. You mentioned characters and how everybody had their time kind of to shine. There was a moment where finally somebody said something to Troy that I think should have been said a long time ago, which is, this handles your specific set of expertise.
Hey, this is a job for you,
Yes.
Troy. What do you know? You have a special power. Maybe we can use it.
Yeah. Finally, it took 5 seasons for them to state the obvious, like, help her out a little bit. Just, give her stuff that's up her alley, and give her good use of her character. I mean, how hard is it?
Help her to help you.
Yes. Yes. So I was waiting for that for a while, and it finally came. That was a good moment. I love to see when they split up the crew. I think there's always value in storytelling when you've got Riker in charge over here handling his own, story subplot, and you've got Picard and Data over here. I love when they split the crew up and you have 2 separate kind of parallel but also weave together storylines, and that's also great storytelling for me in science fiction.
Yeah, I agree, because you get way more good stuff with the characters when you do that. It's just a lot juicier, because on the ship, Picard is usually the one doing the most talking, or the focus is on him. And secondarily, a lot of the times it's Data. So you take those 2 out, suddenly you've got Riker, you got Worf, you got Troy, you got Geordi, all with like amplified roles. Crusher's there too, but she has her own role. She's the one that made the prosthetics. They also mentioned Mr. Mott, the barber, which was cool, that Bolian barber. But yeah, I totally agree. You just can really sink your teeth into characters more when it's like less is more, Landau. When you pull some characters out, you actually get more from the characters that are left there. So I really liked that. And Picard, before he left the Enterprise, had a really juicy scene with that Klingon to Jilik or something like that. Bijik, where the guy was saying, like, how does this benefit the Klingon Empire? And he says, oh, he would have our gratitude. And he's like, that's it? He says, yes. And if he doesn't do it, someone else will, and they will have our gratitude. And he's like, okay, I see what you're stepping in now. I can smell this. So that was beautiful.
Beautiful writing. That's great diplomacy. It's actually one of signature moves for Picard, right? Is how he explains situations and puts you in a precarious position of having to make a choice. And I think that was well executed as well. Love the moment there with Picard kind of summarizing the Spock relationship with his father. And he says something to, father and son, both proud, both stubborn, and he started to talk about that, that relationship, a lifetime of emotional barriers, and I thought that was well played in this episode as well. I can't say enough for Sarek and the performance he gave. I felt like the transition he made from anger when his wife came in and said, hey, I don't want to disturb you. He was really angry, shaking, shivering, almost having these weird convulsions that looked enhanced. I didn't even know was this man actually acting these convulsions, but they looked pretty, enhanced in my opinion. But he went from that state of anger right over to, as soon as Picard said, your son is missing, and he said, Spock? And you could see his body, his everything, his energy change, his whole demeanor went from anger to, a concerned parent.
Yeah, he snapped out of it. Yeah, and then it was also beautiful that we saw the whole arc. He's totally out of it. Sometimes a word or a voice or a smell, can knock somebody out of something like that, right? I say something like that, but we don't have Ben Dye syndrome. It's just a made up thing for Vulcans, but we get it. And they have a coherent, lucid conversation, and then Sarek starts to drift off again. And when he says Pardek, how do you know about Pardek? And then the music kicks in right then, the perfect time where we go, okay, we're losing him again. There he goes again.
Yeah.
And he drifts back into it. I thought that is one of the most memorable and powerful scenes because of that. We see that full arc right there. Really good stuff.
Yeah, and that moment of lucid thought where he, and not only that, but he played it with the sense of emotion that now he's suffering from emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see him acting those emotions out, the fear of his son wandering off in the mountains. He was feeling that, as a parent, he wasn't being logical and matter of fact about it. He was emotional. Even when he said to Picard, Picard said, "I know that you love your son." And Sarek's response was, "Well, make sure you tell him that."
Yeah.
I think something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wow, that was kind of beautiful right there. It was a beautiful moment.
Yeah, I thought so too. That was really powerful and lovely and nice. There are a couple other things very quickly when that cracked me up when Data is just staring at Picard trying to sleep.
Oh my God.
I thought I was like, Sarek is dying right now because he's sitting there like that and Data's just like staring at him. He's like, "Are you looking at me?" He's like, "I'm not looking at anything, sir. I'm sorry if I'm disturbing you." And he says, "I will continue to not look in your direction." And he goes, "I will not continue to look in your direction." And then he turns his head slowly, but he's still like looking. Like that. I watched that like 5 times. It was so unnerving.
I saw it too. And I was thinking, I was feeling the same way as Picard. I was like, bro, you don't have to stand like right here. Like, I get it. You want to stand in the thing, but you can't just stand here hovering over me. Like I need some space. And I thought that was funny. And the way, of course, Brent Spiner plays things for comedy as well as anybody can on this show. The way he does that look away where he's still engaged with his eyes, it's just like that's Brent Spiner doing comedy. And it was great.
Brent is so funny. He's so good.
He's so funny. I mean, even like when they were in the sick bay, I think it was, and Dr. Crusher was looking at him and she said, "Do your ears come off?" The look that he gave her was like, "Do your ears come off?"
Oh, the other one, yes. And then when right before when Picard goes to sleep, when Data says, "Oh, I do not require sleep, so I suggest you go ahead and lie down on the shelf."
Yes.
Delivery.
Yeah.
It's like he's created a character in that the comedy he's doing is not standard comedy. It's comedy for the character he has established. Like the way he's acting, if we don't know what Data is, it doesn't really work, but he's done the work ahead of time to establish this character so that now he can do these subtle little things and these little facial reactions.
And it's specific to Data that it's funny.
It's specific to only one character in the history of the world, and he did the work ahead of time to make these jokes now land. It's really brilliant.
Even when Picard says, he finally wakes up and he's like, I can't go to sleep, and Data goes, "Oh, great, then we can go ahead and now review." And he
gladly, sir. I've been waiting for this moment my whole life. Yeah.
Basically, I was disturbing you just so I could have this conversation.
It's insidious. Well, we're already almost out of time here, so that means this is tough. The home run of the episode. Who gets the home run of today's episode?
I really loved Patrick Stewart's performance in this episode. I thought he was really patient and he delivered all of the moments very well, even the uncomfortable sleeping on the shelf moment,
For
you
hella
know,
long too.
yeah, the debating with the Klingons and negotiating with them to get the ship. All of those moments were played exceptionally well by Sir Patrick Stewart in this particular case. I thought he was just on point, delivering those scenes with Sarek. He was there, being a reliable partner in that scene as well. But as much as I want to give to Patrick Stewart, the monologue that Sarek gave is hands down one of the best monologues I've seen on this show. And performance wise, he hit all the notes. He went from crazy to mad to compassionate to very intelligent. All of this in one kind of cluster of emotions, and then shut down back into a frail, dying man. And I thought, the life that he gave, the fervor that delivered the scene with, gave us a glimpse of how great he was as when he was at his greatness. And I think Sarek's performance, and forgive me, you got to find the actor's name who plays him.
Mark Leonard. Mark Leonard.
Yeah, Mark Leonard gets the home run.
Yep. That's so funny because I'm 100% with you there. I was like, Mark Leonard is A+ aces. It's impossible to beat him in this thing, even though Picard has these incredible moments that only Patrick Stewart, like what we were saying with Data, Patrick Stewart has now created his own version of comedy. Like when he's just lying there and opening his eyes and looking, he's very, very good at delivering humor, but it's very subtle. And it's because he's done the work ahead of time to be this stiff Englishman, French guy. And so I'm there with you 100% where it's like any other day, easy home run. But Mark Leonard is there, and he just did a master class on emotion, on giving us, a ride of emotion, which was just beautiful. Just, what an incredible actor Mark Leonard is. Okay, so also here are some other incredible actors because they pretend no, they don't pretend. They're our buddies. We love them. Their names are Dr. Anne-Marie Siegel, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackman, Tom, TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Titus Muller, Dr. Mohammed Noor, Anil O. Palat, Joe Balsarati, Mike Gu, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, a.k.a. Crewman Guy, the Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde, Julie Manasfi, Jed Thompson, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Glenn Iverson, Dave Gregory, Chris Sternett, the wine guy, Greg K. Wickstrom out in Hawaii, Cassandra Gerard, Chuck A., Chris Garris, and of course, Jason Oken. God, reading over that list, we are so lucky to have so many awesome people there. I love those guys. There aren't they? Every one of them is amazing. I love those guys. We're so lucky.
Their faces come up every time you read their name.
Me too.
I think that. Yeah.
Me too. Except for Anil O. Palat. Oh boy, that guy just. Anil, you know what you did. All right,
we love
everybody.
You.
Stick around. Hopefully Anil's on the other side, and hopefully Sarek doesn't rat me out. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule. Hey everybody, welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Sarek Lofton. This is the Free for All with Melissa Longo.
Oh, hi, how are ya?
Jason Oken doesn't realize there's an Enterprise behind him, but it looks rad.
Hey everybody.
Yeah.
Allison Leach Hyde is matching Melissa.
Yay!
Faith Howell has a cool Seventh Rule shirt, looking radical. Chuck A is sporting his favorite Picard shirt made by Melissa. Carrie Schwent is jumping out of a Twilight marathon just for this. Thank you.
All right.
The Dark Lord Chris McGee has a cool Seventh Rule shirt. It's the isolinear chip, and the Matt Boardman's got his Ferengi family ready to drop bombs on us. Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
I'm going to say this is in the high eights, and I'll go 8.8.
Does anybody else have any guesses that doesn't already know what this is on IMDb?
On IMDb. 8.4.
I was going to say
How about
8.2.
8.5?
I will give you $1. I mean,
You guys are all pretty tight in there, right? It's all between like 8.2s and 8.5.
Yeah.
It is an 8.2, Chris McGee.
Oh, wow.
See, this is what happens when you take a
Yeah.
week off. You come back refreshed. This is awesome. Ready to take on the world. That's called load management in the sports world. Do we have some kinds of or some
Oh,
sorts of, Chris
God.
McGee?
As a matter of fact, we do have one. Perrin, near the beginning, drinking that mint tea, says Vulcans have some kind of strange concoction they call mint.
And non-appearance mentions. Let me see who we got here. I got Gowron. I got Mr. Mott. Catal. Have we ever met Catal before? I used to go to a park called Cataldi Park, but I don't think it's that. If we ever met a Cataldi or a Catal at any point, but I don't think we did. The other one is, and I know Melissa's going to fight me on this one, the ship named the T'Pau is the. I know Homer would say no, that's not a non-appearance mention. But what do you think, Melissa? What do you guys think?
I think it is a non-appearance mention because I kept thinking about her every single time they mentioned T'Pau.
I don't know.
We didn't see her, and we have seen her in the original series.
Right. And in Strange New Worlds. But that doesn't.
And in Strange New Worlds, yeah.
But do we ever decide if a ship is a non-appearance mention? Like, are we going to have like a non-appearance mention for Tecumseh?
What?
Or
Okay. All right.
To get pedantic here, they're mentioning the ship name, not the person's name, not the Vulcan's name. So
but
that's what I think Helmer would say.
That's true. He would say that. He would say no,
But
is what he would say.
Homer and I were often on the opposite sides of a debate when it came to NAMs.
That's true. You guys were master debaters about the NAMs. I don't know.
To come, sir. To come.
Look, anyway, I guess we say yes because we're all intimidated by Melissa. Melissa Longo, can you please get us started off on the right track and let us know what you thought of this episode, please?
I kind of like that idea. Be intimidated. Be afraid. Be very afraid. Sorry. I liked this episode very much for several reasons. Because one is, Mark Leonard. Oh my gosh, the man, he is so delicious to watch on screen. And his interactions with Picard are fantastic. I love the way he delivers lines because it is so different from what one would expect a person to deliver the lines. He's very much a classical actor of the golden age of Hollywood. But at the same time, having those characteristics and mannerisms, it doesn't, he never loses the truth behind his eyes. There's always something going on. I saw the struggle of him trying to keep his lucidity, hang on to it as long as possible. I saw the chaos raging in there and being distracted, and it was beautiful. He is beautiful to watch. He's a master to watch. And so is Patrick Stewart. He gives so much, and they play together so well. They have great chemistry on set. And this was probably one of my favorite moments of the entire episode, is when Picard does the live long and prosper thing for Sarek so that he can did I say that right?
Sarek.
Sarek. There's so many S names. So that he could, deliver the message that he's trying to convey, communicate the message that he's trying to convey, that he wants Picard to give to his son Spock. Beautiful moment. I also thought that the scene between Picard and Data was when they're on the Klingon ship and Picard's trying to sleep. And he's like, Data, what are you doing? What are you doing? I'm just preparing to be a Romulan. And then Data staring at Picard. He's like, Data, why are you staring at me? I'm not staring at you. I thought that was a brilliant, brilliant scene. I also really loved seeing Picard and Data as Romulans. Great. I don't know. The whole ensemble of this cast is really strong, including the relationship between Riker and Troy when they're on the bridge together and they're talking to the wonderful junkyard guy. What a dude! What a character he is, too. So many great performances in this episode. Great character. But Deanna, Troy, and Riker have such great chemistry when they look at each other and talk to each other. You can feel that this relationship has been a long one within a few brief words between each other that have nothing to do with their relationship. So before I continue to ramble more and more, I really enjoyed this episode a lot because of the richness it did provide us. And I can't wait to see the second part, which I have not watched before. Oh, and this is the first time I saw this episode ever. I'd never seen it before. So, surprise. And then surprise Spock. Woohoo! Anyway,
Pretty good.
I'm done.
That was a good episode to watch for the first time.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Melissa Longo. Jason M. Oken is here. He loves this episode. Top 40 for him. What do you think of this one?
Oh, top 40 for sure. I think for Star Trek fans, I think, the enjoyment of this episode is certainly enhanced if you watch and love the original series. I mean, it's at some level, you have to put yourself back in the early 90s where, you basically are watching a real crossover, maybe for the first time. And I think, as the episode itself, it certainly has a lot of things packed into it. And as Melissa said, it's held up by the performance. And I think that Sarek scene is the episode. I mean, it's something that stands out to such a degree. I mean, it even starts with the camera kind of pulling up and turning. You actually see this, Sarek's death chamber as it's described. I mean, I always wondered, what the hell was this? Because it didn't look like a bedroom. It's a ceremonial death chamber, or supposed to be. So You're witnessing that scene, and Patrick's performance is amazing throughout. Mark Leonard. I mean, he had only one scene, but what a scene! And I think the music that permeated that scene, right at the beginning, it starts with a little bit of a score, then the music dies down. You have the scene, and then it picks up at the end and sort of culminates with the Vulcan sign, with the Vulcan salute. I mean, it is a wonderful scene. And Elise, I know you haven't seen part 2, but out of part 1, part 2, and the Abomination they call part 3, years down the road, this is my favorite, and I think it probably is the better one. Even though I mean, one thing is it was filmed later because of scheduling. Actually, it was written later as well. It was written after part 2.
Really?
And sometimes anticipation is better than the actual results. So I enjoy this episode tremendously. I always have. And again, they have Mark Leonard here, and they put Malachi Throne here, which is, another sort of Easter egg for those who have watched the original series. So it is, in my mind, one of the, it certainly delivered. You can argue whether part 2 delivered on its promise or not, but this one certainly did.
Sounds like a best of both worlds kind of thing, where the first episode might be better than the second. But thank you very much, Jason M. Oken, for saying Abomination for the first time on this show. All right, Allison Leach Hyde is here. She loves the word abomination. What do you think of this episode, though?
I was wondering if you're going to call me an abomination.
I would never.
Thank you.
Melissa would fuck me up
roll
if I
right
did.
in. So
I do. Be afraid.
So of course, I love this episode. It is great. I thought they balanced drama to comedy really, really well. Because, we have the great scenes with Picard and Sarek. And then we have, dealing with the Zakdorn. We have Data overviewing Picard as he tries to sleep on metal shelf. I loved Finer's delivery of that. We're trying to say bed, and he's like, shelf. I'm like, yes, it's true. It's a shelf. And just, Picard's uncomfortableness of like, I'll try it on my back, I'll try it on my side. I'm like, don't do your side. That'd be so much worse. Anyway, so I do love the balance of that and the intrigue of, why is Spock going to the Romulans? Why is there Vulcan ship parts, that have been destroyed? And the Zakdorn was probably like my best, like, fun surprise, because Zakdorns are hysterical. They're just so self-important, and it's wonderful. Even he was the king of his hill. His hill may not have been that big, but he was the king of his hill, and he was demanding the respect he was due. And just seeing the glint in Troy's eye trying to explain this to Riker, and then Riker go, sounds like you would be really good at this. I think you should do this. And then her face just falls. I'm like, yes. So that's what I really enjoyed about this episode. It's really, really fun. The music, as Jason mentioned, is wonderful. They got an Emmy nomination for it. So well deserved there.
Cool. Didn't know that. Great stuff. Thank you very much, Allison Leach Hyde in beautiful New Mexico. Faith Howell knows something about beauty herself. Great shirt, great background. How are you? What do you think of this one?
I mean, I remember watching this with my daddy when it first aired. Of course, having watched TOS with him, as Jason commented, I definitely was super excited both to see Mark Leonard and, the little glimpse we get of Spock at the end. So definitely this was, a very exciting episode at that time. Rewatching it now, I really like the intrigue. It's always fun to see our main characters in alternate makeup. They're always fun ones. We get some really good ones in DS9 as well. But yeah, overall, just really enjoyed this episode. Can't wait to see part 2. I have vague memories of it, but I don't remember all the details. I definitely didn't remember seeing the Zakdorn in this one. So
me neither. Great stuff. Thanks very much, Faith Howell. All right, Chuck A. Some people call you the TNG fanatic. What do you think of this one?
Well, I remember seeing this when it first came out, and I kept on saying, I know Spock is in it. When's he going to be in it? When's he going to be in it? And of course, he's in it for 15, 20 seconds tops. Part 2, I've seen it couple 2 or 3 times over the last 5 to 10 years. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Jason mentioned Malachi Throne, and he was in the Menagerie episode. He played original series Commodore Mendez, I believe it was, and he was in charge of the court martial in that episode. It was good to see him. Like Melissa said, Mark Leonard was just absolutely fantastic. In both of the episodes that he was in, he was such a great actor. I actually met him and talked to him in a Sears store in Santa Monica during the 80s when the movies were out. He spent like 5 or 10 minutes talking to me. Wonderful guy.
Wow.
The one scene that I really loved in there that has been mentioned is when Picard is trying to sleep and Data is like staring at him and what are you looking at? I just thought that was hilarious. And also, Brent Spiner, I'm not sure he got to appear without his facial, the gold and the eyes before. He was as a Romulan, but you could actually see more of Brent Spiner. Later on, he has in a future episode, you get to see him. But I really enjoyed the episode, seeing it again. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to part 2. I haven't seen it too much recently, so we'll see where that goes. But it was a wonderful part 1 episode. I really enjoyed it.
And that was awesome. Thank you so much, Chuck A, a.k.a. TNG Fanatic. Carrie Schwent is here. Thank you for being so patient during the Twilight Marathon. What did you think of this episode, though?
I've seen it a million times, so I do not mind one bit. This episode, I think I'd only seen maybe once or twice, so the only part of it I remembered was Spock coming in at the end. But the thing that tugged at my heartstrings was definitely Sarek and Picard. Just that whole scene, seeing him like that is very difficult if you've ever had a older loved one who is going through that. It can be a little difficult to watch, but they both just absolutely just knocked it out of the park. But the rest of there were so many scenes that were hysterical. I loved the soup lady. She was fun.
Yeah.
And one of the other podcasts that I listen to when I do my prep mentioned that she was the voice of the computer for DS9, but I couldn't find anything online to corroborate it. But the more I heard it, the more I heard her voice, the more I heard it, but I couldn't find anything to confirm it. So I'm not sure. Maybe I heard it wrong, but she was great. Data and Picard look fantastic as Romulans. It's nice seeing Patrick Stewart with hair, and I've mentioned this before. I love the Romulan haircut. I think it's cool. I very much like it, but my notes are a little scribbled. I've been doing this, writing my notes in between movies, so bear with me. But yeah, the other scene, there's when they're with the junkyard guy and Deanna's sitting there talking to him, and when he tells the helm where to go, he directs the helm. Right, watch it again. Riker standing behind him has these facial expressions on, like, okay, wait, he's doing what? And then you see him turn towards the helm and just sort of points at the helm like this. Eric noticed it at first and rewound, and I watched it again the second time. Absolutely hysterical. But of course, the single funniest scene, which several people have mentioned, is with Picard and the Klingon captain first, and then later Picard and Data. The Klingon guy's like, "Yeah, you're gonna hate this room." Picard's like, "No, I love this room." "You're gonna hate the food." "No, man, I love the food. Let's bring it on. I haven't had Gok in so long." And then later on with Data, when you're laying there trying to sleep and you've got your back to a person, you, even without turning around, you know when someone's looking in your direction, even if they aren't actually looking at you. You can just feel when someone's looking in your direction. So I absolutely understand Picard freaking out over that. But naturally, that scene, of course, inspired the limerick. So I will end my turn with that. Let's see, here we go. "I am just trying to compile my Romulan historical files, but he is trying to sleep. I try not to make a peep. We must do what the mission requires."
Very nice.
Yes.
Thank you very much,
Excellent
Carrie
episode.
Schwent. And by the way, speaking of the Romulan hairdo, check this out. This is from the Humanist Trek podcast. Incoming message from the Grammys. Lady Gaga wants to know what the fuck you're doing so close to the neutral zone.
Yeah, she would make a fantastic Romulan.
I think she already did. Thanks very much.
Let's do it again.
Carrie Schwent. All right, Chris McGee, the Dark Lord, is here. What's up, Chris? What do you think of this one?
The Unification. It is a fantastic two-part episode that brings back some of our favorite actors, including, of course, Mark Leonard as Sarek, whom we've seen on the show once before. He reprises his role one final time and does an impeccable job, as he always does, as others have already mentioned, portraying a man suffering from physical, mental, and emotional deterioration. And it can be sometimes hard to watch for those of us who know someone who's gone through similar illnesses. Interestingly, when I rewatched this episode earlier today, I saw Stephen Root's name in the opening credits. And even after all the times I've seen it before, I never noticed that. It took me a while to figure out which character he played, but then I could tell when Captain Kavada showed up. And still, it's almost hard to believe Stephen Root's the actor under all that Klingon makeup. And he does it quite well. And when he says, "You will sleep Klingon style," all I could think about was the Gangnam Style music video that made the rounds over a decade ago, and the inevitable parody of it that I'm sharing right now for those of you watching the video version of this podcast. The episode also has an interesting B plot that it seems almost completely unrelated to the A plot on the surface, but if you know Star Trek, then you know better, and that's all I'll say about that. So I'll go on to my memorable quote of the episode: Picard in the sick bay saying to Dr. Crusher, "Nobody's perfect, Doctor."
Great stuff as always. Thanks very much, Chris McGee, the Dark Lord. The Matt Boardman is here. The Matt, your thoughts on this one?
Jolan True. I love this episode. Like I there's a string of these episodes here in season 5 that just, it's like that TNG warm blanket, it kind of reminds you back when these were first on, and it's just like this stuff, like it's episodes like these that are like, this is why Next Generation is a favorite of so many people, because it's good storytelling, and they've taken characters from the original series, and it's that tapestry that is Star Trek, right? That it's not just a one-off show. It's like it has a history. Like Star Trek universe has a history, and Sarek and Spock are part of that, and it's so cool to watch the Next Generation interacting with those characters. It's, Mark Leonard, top marks. What a great performance to this man who's been the pinnacle of Vulcan discipline his whole life, and to see that stripped away as we're witnessing essentially the end of his life, right? And like Jason said, as the music swells there at the end, I was like, oh man, it's such a powerful moment. I love the humor in this episode that has been pointed out. One of my favorites is the Zach Dorn. When he says to Troy, he says he probably figures that we don't get to see a lot of handsome women out this way, and someone like you might get a little more cooperation out of me. He's probably right.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right, Deanna. Flirt to convert, man.
Flirt to convert.
Yeah. I just, but another thing that I thought was really cool is the junior adjunct that they spoke to. That's Eric Avari.
Yeah,
and
we
Eric
know him.
Avari, you'll remember him from Deep Space Nine, where he's like, emissary, the sword of the stars, with the prophecy that the 3 vipers, anyway, and also from Stargate and whatever. So I was really, like, it took me a moment. I was like, man, I know that face, and I had to look it up. I'm ashamed that I had to say that I had to look it up, but I was pleasantly surprised. I was like, yeah, so cool. So, but yeah, great episode. TNG warm blanket, and I'm looking forward to part 2.
Mm-hmm. Thanks very much, the Matt. Always rad. Jake's final take. Mr. Lofton, your thoughts on Warm Blankets?
Warm Blankets. I like the makeup on the Zach Dorn. I thought it was a great makeup job. Really looked unusual. I was like, this guy needs some sleep because he's got some serious bags under his eyes. What's up with Galron? He's dissing us, man. You know? When you need me, you're all on my ass. You know, you're all on Picard trying to ask me to do this, and can you negotiate that? And now when I'm hitting you up, you're like, you won't call me back for 3 days. Like, what's up with that? So I'm a little disappointed in Galron, to be honest with you, because he seems like a man of integrity, and he usually keeps his word. I didn't like him kind of, backburnering Picard like that. So unless he makes up for that next episode, I'm making a mental note over here. But also, I love the fact that Spock was in this episode because it really begins the tradition of the torch being passed from one show to another. It also begins this, this idea of all of the Star Trek shows being a family. And I thought that this is confirmed in this episode. It gave me kind of remnants of Trials and Tribulations and how they also tried to blend the original series with Next Generation. And the marriage of those two, of two different shows, is something that I think works well for Star Trek in general when you talk about the overall tapestry of the franchise. I enjoy it. It was a special thing. I thought that Les Landau and the cinematographer did a great job in this one. There was a few shots there that were in the death chamber, as Jason described. The overhead shot, but also the shot while he was giving his monologue, was walking him around that room and then ended on a over the shoulder, which went into Picard. I thought it was a great shot. It just added to the monologue itself and how well it was delivered. Loved the lighting inside of the Klingon ship. There was a moment there when Picard got the message that Sarek is dead. There was a soft kind of light on his face, really well done. So I like some of those choices. I also think that, I mean, I had a name for a band that Zach Dorn should join.
Oh no!
I think Allison knows it. The Zach Dorn Band. And where else do we have here? I had one last thing that I wanted to talk about. I can't seem to find it here, but overall, I enjoyed the episode. I thought it was well done. Love to see Les Landau in there. And of course, Mark Leonard is unbelievable. The range of emotion that he gave us in that scene was unbelievable. And at the end of that scene, which is kind of behind Matt Boardman, he kind of grabs himself as if he's cold. He's sitting on that bed, and as if he's cold. And I thought, just an amazing performance. The whole range of emotions that he walked through in that scene was unbelievable. Had it not been that great, I would say Picard was the best in this episode because he was fantastic. He delivered that negotiation with the Klingons as good as you could do it. I thought he was there in a lot of moments, even the scene with Mark Leonard. He was there for him in that scene, opposite him, really delivering the facial expressions and the seriousness of the moment, registering for me on Picard's face. So, altogether, I really enjoyed this episode. I had it at a high 8. And also, Rick Berman and Michael Piller having an understanding of what significance this would have as far as torch passing from my estimation. I think they understood that this would have a big impact. And so, yeah, that's my final take.
Is there a Zach Dorn band? Is that? Did you say the
No,
Zach
no.
Dorn?
Yeah, yeah, that's a play on the other Zach Brown band, right?
Yeah, there's a Zach Brown band, but I actually Googled it, and there is a Zach Dorn musician. That's why I was like, wow, that's a deep cut. Yeah, that's actually like, I was like, wow, how do you guys know this guy? Check it out. I was like, whoa, did this guy make it bigger than I thought? Meet an Artist Monday, Zach Dorn, July 22nd, 2019.
Oh,
and then there's an interview everybody can read if they want to know more about the Zach Dorn.
Yeah, I totally knew that.
But the Zach Brown band. Also cool. All right. Thank you very much to the Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Carrie Schwent, Chuck A., Faith Howell, Allison Leach Hyde, Jason M. Oken, Melissa Longo, for myself, Sarek, Melissa, and Mr. Aaron Eisenberg. We appreciate you hanging out with us, and we'll see you next time. Until then, always remember the 7th rule.